Hello, Martin.
Good morning. Is that Tony?
Yes.
I haven't spoken to you for a long time.
No.
What did you last say when you last spoke?
We were having tea and toast together. We were working together in Ireland. We had some deep conversations, Martin, didn't we?
We were. Tony was he's the top analyst, Tony. He doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Well, that's why they put him on with me, Martin, because I'm the top idiot, so he makes me sound clever.
Brilliant.
Martin, I wanted to ask you because obviously we get nostalgic. We talk back of the past and when times were like before at Arsenal, and I see all these contracts ending, players leaving the club, just in limbo. And to me, that wouldn't have happened in the Arsenal dressing room. That the players that you play with, you would not have got away with, oh, well, yeah, I might sign, might not. Everyone knows you negotiate, but that scenario just wouldn't have happened.
No, it's a very different world now. And it just feels that it's the end of an era at Arsenal and everybody looking for the exit door. And most recently, Jack Wilshere, for me, he sort of encompasses the future because he's like a shining light coming back from a career that looked like it was going to be finished, quite frankly, at the top level. And he's as good as these guys. And he now is the player that Arsene Wenger needs to sort of build things around if he can trust him and he can believe in him enough to do that. But Sanchez and Ozil, the other night, Ozil, that's the first time I realised how good a player he was. He committed everything. He was quick. He was incisive in his play, and it was a different Ozil. And he's been holding back. I don't want him at Arsenal if he's not going to commit to every match. Yeah. Sanchez now looks like he's trying to force that moving out of the club, and I just don't like the feeling. He's a bad smell at the club, and I think Wenger could never have been in a more difficult situation managerially. This must test him every day, having to work in these situations.
I bet. But nonetheless, it's Wenger who takes the rap for allowing the two biggest stars to not sign up maybe a year ago or 18 months ago. And he's the person who takes the blame ultimately for that, partly because I think he has a lot of autonomy at the club.
Yeah, but he's been trying to get these players to sign for 2.5 years. It's a conversation that's never gone away. And really, you're looking at it now. What are you going to get for them now? Are they going to secure Championship League football? What are we now? 4 or 5 points behind Liverpool, who look like they're improving all the time. I don't see Arsenal making it into the Champions League. Tottenham might struggle to make it into those 4 places. The Europa League might be the only chance of getting in there. And that could come right at the 11th hour. So we'll be waiting all year now to see if Wenger's going to stay another year, because he has said he's going to assess things at the end of the season. He's never said that midway through a contract before. So, and I believe behind the scenes, there's lots of managerial changes. Different departments have all got new people coming into the football club. Is that being led by Arsene Wenger, or is it done by Ivan Gazidis and they've got a different view behind the scenes? It does feel that they're preparing for the future now at Arsenal Football Club.
Yeah, it's the only club in English football where he will choose, I think. I don't think it's very likely that Arsene Wenger won't choose what happens. But do you think, when it comes to the FA Cup, Cass and I were just saying that the one thing I think is quite hilariously unfair on Arsenal is that every year at this time we talk about how important an FA Cup win would be at the moment for maybe Tottenham, for Liverpool, for clubs that aren't quite there when it comes to the league. And yet when Arsenal win at the end of the season, 3 in the last 4 years, we go, oh, yeah. It really, that is how it seems to happen.
Well, Wenger, you have to say, what he's done in the FA Cup is quite remarkable.
Yeah, it is.
7 times he's won it. The club have won it 13 times now in their history. He's won almost half of those himself. He just keeps... What he does is he never treats any game any differently. He's very professional in the approach, and he'll be putting a team out. It'd be interesting today because there's been a lot of injuries, and I wonder what they'll do against Forest. And Forest have got I've watched them against Leeds, and they've got half of their team is through the academy. They've got 1 or 2 players there that Premiership clubs will be looking at. Worrell at the back looks a decent player. They've got Cash, who plays out on the wing. A lot of clubs have already looked at him. Berreton's only 18, 19, and he's leading the line. There is a future there for Forest, so it'll be interesting to see what happens, because if he puts the youngsters out against these guys are getting first-team football, and a lot of the young players at Arsenal aren't. So it'll be an interesting battle today if Wenger can get the right balance.
And also, I was going to add to that, Martin, when you don't have a team without a manager, you sort of rely on your players so much more, don't you? Because you expect them to be the leaders when you get over that white line.
Yeah, a lot of managers looking at Forest, they just lack a bit of experience, a bit of know-how. 1 or 2 signings, players coming to the end of their contracts, maybe elsewhere, could go into Forest. And Forest is when you wander into the boardroom at Forest, as I'm going to do again today, you see replica Champions League trophies sitting in there. It is quite remarkable what that football club has achieved, and it's all in their past, I'm afraid, and they'll try and rekindle that. But Arsenal are big favourites to win today. Whether they can win another FA Cup, if Wenger does it again, I think it'd be remarkable.
It's interesting actually, because I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Forest fan, and he said, the problem with having one of the most legendary managers of the game associated with your club, and there aren't many problems, but the big, when it comes to the big names, you've got the Shankly, Busby, Clough. Wenger and Ferguson will be in those names in folklore. Is that actually Clough's ghost still looms so large over Forest, in a way it's almost become, he thinks as a Forest fan, a handicap for them.
Yeah, it probably is. But, they always develop good young players over the years. I think Lascelles was the last one, wasn't he? The decent players. They've got to hold on to those guys. You look at, Clough, there's talk of Nigel Clough going back. Can they rekindle the past? I think it'd be great to see Forest do it once more. There's one big club really missing out of, that West Midlands area needs to have a club, doesn't it, back into the Premier League. Okay, Leicester are in there. What they've done is remarkable. We never believed it. But I don't know, Forest, every time I go back there, I always feel, that was a great period. If of our age group, myself and Tony, they were magnificent. Woodcock and Francis and the players they had. To meet Clough and spend time with him, I nearly signed for Forest in '89, and I was locked in his office for 3 hours, and it was quite remarkable. The way the man was, honestly, it was just a joy to be in his company. He sent me flowers, he sent me a crystal vase. When I didn't sign, he asked for the vase back again. It was quite remarkable.
I was going to say,
man.
you would have been there at the same time as Keown, but actually you wouldn't have, would you? Oh,
no.
You might have overlapped a little bit if you'd gone. That would have been amazing. Yeah. You wouldn't have been battling out each other for Arsenal United.
Well, you should have sent him the vase back with water still in it and the flowers.
Yeah, but I think it all came from he had a sweet shop or something. He ran a sweet shop and a flower shop. All came from his own shop. But he was he rang me up after to say, did he go too far? Because every time I called him, I kept calling him Brian. He said, it's Mr. Clough. Big
like a bad romance.
So, Martin, just go back to Arsenal finally. What sort of transfer window did you expect for the fans in January? Because, everyone's looking at the end of the season, but there could be a lot of activity between now and the end of January.
Well, I don't expect that. That would go against the grain for Arsene Wenger. He's brought a young central defender in, which is almost standard. Will we see him develop and come into the first team? When he brought Holding in, didn't he? Paid very little for him. He's now playing in the first team. There's talk of Johnny Evans perhaps coming in, which I think would be a decent signing. Look a little bit weak in that back three.
Yes.
I thought Moreta and Hazard, when they ran at them, caused big problems. I don't know why Gabriel was allowed to leave the football club. For me, I would have loved to have worked with him. I thought he was a real out-and-out defender. Keown, of course, is their best defender, but I think he was better than Mustafi, and Mustafi's still there. So, it's all down to perception, how you perceive players, and I think that Gabriel was better than what's there now.
I know you've spoken about this before, Martin, and it seems strange that so many of the great players that were at Arsenal, like the Vieiras, like yourself, and a good few others, and Tony Adams has been mentioned as well, that you just feel that none of them have really been kept in the mould. I know, obviously, Steve Bold is still there, but working with that team.
Well, yes, but I think that Wenger now, though, is sharing the club much more now. If Mertesacker now is going to be head of the director for the youth team. There's one or two players. Jens Lehmann has come in behind the scenes. He's actually assistant manager, Jens Lehmann. So Wenger has now reached a period where he wants to share the club more. It's less about his club. And I think that period of when we were playing, we were coming to the end of our careers, I don't think Wenger wanted to share it quite so much because I believe that the likes of Vieira and Bergkamp, they were special people. There was an aura that around them, hugely intelligent. A lot of these guys are still working in the game. And they probably should have surrounded Arsene Wenger, either side of him, helping him to make decisions. But that was a journey that never happened because Wenger didn't want to go that way. But now I believe he will have to, and he's started to do that behind the scenes.
Martin, enjoy the game today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Cheers, Martin.
Thanks, guys.
Bless you. Thank you.